submitted a budget to the workshop. It is going forward to the board this evening. Don't know if the board's going to have additional questions for us. They have had several weeks to look at it. Because two things factor in. So I told you all that we were trying to do as much of a neutral budget as possible. With TISA funding coming in, the governor did stipulate that we increase all certificated employees' salaries on that progression that he has in place to get them to a starting pay of $50,000 by 2026. So for us, starting at 40, and in 4 school years getting to 50, we had to make incremental gains. They set that minimum target for us for 42,000. So that's 2,000 at each step across the scale for all of our teaching certificated staff. Now, something that's different than what was in BEP, with TISA, it specified a certificated staff. That's anybody with a license. That could be admin license, that could be teacher license. That's everybody with a license. BEP, it was more specific to teaching staff. So that was costly, but he provided for that in the budget. That's the good news. Majority of that in the budget. When we do that, every other group then is behind other areas and other regions in our county. So we did a cost study, salary study. The board specifically asked us to look at custodians, educational assistants, which we had already targeted for an increase this year. Remind me who else? Is that the two groups? We went ahead and did some informal studies on other groups as well, just to see where we fell. But those were significantly below some of the like systems. Now, we're not going to compare ourselves to Johnson City or Kingsport City, but we will compare ourselves to Union, to Sullivan, like county school systems. So we were below those, and we made arrangements to bump every salary scale across the board up. With that, 2 things factor in. We can only claim a 93-94% collection rate on our taxes, which we know comes in closer to 98-ish. So we're in the deficit on our projections. Again, these are projections. And then also the local option sales tax, we can't claim beyond what our expenses need to show. So, and that's been coming in at significantly higher when it comes to actuals. So if you think of a school year or a fiscal year between July 1 and June 30th, we can't, and we have to make a projected budget prior to July 1st. We actually don't get the actuals for this year that we're projecting until the following October, first part of November, the following year. So remember, what we're talking about this evening is projections. If everything pans out as we have it projected, which we're significantly underestimating our revenues because of those tax rates and the maintenance of effort, we feel that this is a balanced budget. We feel it's going to be very, very close when it's all said and done. And that's giving everybody across the board what we've needed to do for a long time. So we feel very, very good about it. With that being said, I wanted to field any questions from you all before we go into the budget committee and then ultimately to the commission. So right now we're projecting 2.1, and Melissa's here because she's the detail person and the guru behind our finances. So any questions, I may defer to her if I can't give you specifics, but that's an overview of where we're at.
So you're saying 2.1%?
2.1 million deficit projection.
So what is the percentage of your increase?
Well, it's hard to say percentage because like for the teachers, they went from a base of 40,800 to 42,000. And then that $2,000 is spread across every step in the scale, which is from 0 to 30. And then they teach for bachelor's, master's, doctorate. For other scales, we did, I think there was an average of close to 14% for educational assistants. There was an average of close to probably 8 to 10, 12%, depending on the step for custodians. It just depends on what we wound up doing and comparing ourselves to other systems, making sure we were competitive in the mix.
So you did that versus the cost of living increase,
Yeah, and I think in most cases, we far exceeded the cost of living
I'm
increase.
sure.
And only because we would have defaulted to a cost of living if we had been able to be consistent year to year. But there were years where certain groups didn't do anything.
Right.
And we felt like with TISA coming in, it was a good time to reset and move forward, see what we had.
Seems like you got it wood.
It's never enough. I think one of our board members asked about potentially looking at the educational assistants again and trying to get that starting pay about 20. But we have data clerks, secretaries. We have the special ed side of our instructional assistants that they have to pay through IDEA, and that impacts a number of funds once you start setting a target that may not be tied to us being competitive in other like positions. So we felt like this was a good way to at least present and start with it.
And you feel comfortable with those status?
I do. Yep. I do. We're ahead in several areas from the state's perspective on safety initiatives that we've taken. So some of that safety funding we can divert to some potentially maintenance if we're allowed. We don't know about that yet, but there's some creativity down the road I think that we can leverage that's coming from the state, and that'll help offset some other expenses. Our biggest expense right now, other than salaries, which is close to 80-something% of our revenues that we get coming in, go right back out in salaries, is our maintenance of buildings. Maintenance is our buildings are old. You know, if I give you two scenarios here, roofs. We've done sections of roofs. The biggest roofing project was Bull Gap, where we configured the whole site, but it took 3 years. We did a section, and a section. And that was probably $1 million and a half job just to roof Bull's Gap. We're talking about needing to do that at the high school. We have open contracts with roofers now that do nothing but patch our roofs. And that's whenever we see a leak. Those are the leaks we know about. And it's just due to age. And the stupid design of flat roofs. I don't get why people do that, but if I ever design a school, it's going to have a piss roof. So we get way too much rain for
How's
flat
the
roofs.
compensation ratio stop buckets?
I know, yes. And that'll hopefully be rectified when we do the HVAC, because we try to do roof work on that too, so. Yeah, have for years, and we think we fix an area like over the gym, and then it moves down to the band room.
Ball here had buckets in '89 when I graduated.
Well, look at the Justice Center. We've chased it since the place
You
opened.
guys know what we're dealing with,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with the same age facilities throughout the county too, so. I'll be waiting with all of you to see what our actuals look like next fall. A year from October, because I think we're gonna be real close to neutral. When it's all said and done and we paid our bills, I think we'll have a neutral.
We do the same thing with our general fund budget. So.